In this series of DAX starting out, we look at some simple aggregation functions we can use in measures, simple DAX in calculated columns, and the new DAX Query View. What is DAX? DAX stands for Data Expression Language and is a formula language used in Power BI, powerpivot, and tabular models to create calculated tables, calculated columns, measures, and be able to query the data model. Look at calculated columns, which are created within a table using a DAX formula. These are computed once during the data refresh and are stored in the data model. You might use them to add new data elements, computing calculations based on other columns, or creating flags and/or categorizing a row of data. Unlike calculated columns, measures are dynamic calculations applied to the data model at query time and not stored in the data model. Measures typically perform calculations based on conditions, aggregations, percentages, and a lot of complex functionality. Today we'll be looking at some mainly. The DAX Query View is a recent feature to Power BI that allows users to see the underlying DAX queries generated by visualizations. You can also write DAX queries against the model for analysis or, for instance, optimizing DAX code for performance. Data for this presentation is generated insurance data. Links will be provided below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss out on the latest videos. And if you enjoy what you see, give us a thumbs up to show your support. I'd love to hear from you, so be sure to leave your thoughts, questions, and any suggestions in the comments below. Thank you. We'll start with getting our data from a CSV file and bring that into Power BI. Click Load. We can then see our data in the table view and can see that it needs some sort of formatting. Firstly, we'll look at the account years and remove the summation on account years. We'll then highlight our measure columns, standing paid, premium, and add a thousandth separator to those as they're already whole numbers. Finally, we'll convert our date columns to simple dates as a data type and day, month, and year. Now we have a data set that we can work with. Let's add our first table visualization and add all the attributes within the flat table. Count year, policy ref, business unit parent, business unit child, country, policy start and end date, then premium, claims outstanding, claims paid. We can now add some calculated columns. In the table view, we can click on the icon New Column. In this case, we're going to create the claims incurred, which is the claims paid plus claims outstanding. Just a note on calculated columns, they increase the model size and can only be refreshed during the initial refresh of the model. For performance reasons, it's always best if you can create a measure as opposed to a calculated column. We'll now create another column called loss ratio or policy loss ratio at the row level. We'll use the DAX function divide. We'll divide claims incurred by premium. We can format as this is a percentage. and it's a non-additive column. Let's now add our calculated columns to the first visual. We'll add claims incurred and policy loss ratio. Claims incurred comes on fine. Loss ratio at a policy level is looking good as well. But what if we want to see this at rolled up at a country level? So let's create a copy of this visual, bring it down, and remove all attributes except country and the measure. So we've left policy loss ratio in there, which is at policy level. So therefore, it isn't quite doing what we're expecting it to do, which is roll up at the country level. So if we remove policy loss ratio, now that's starting to do what we want it to do. If we change the policy loss ratio to a summation column and reintroduce it, percentages completely way out, don't work. So now we'll need to create a specific measure to calculate the loss ratio, which allows you to bring it in at any level. As part of that, though, we'll also create measures for all the attributes that are there. So we'll start with premium. That's just simply summing the premium column. We'll add another measure for claims paid. Equal to the sum of the claims paid column. Our next measure, claims outstanding, which is the sum of the claims outstanding column. We can reuse these measures to calculate the claims incurred. So you can reuse the measures, claims paid plus claims outstanding. Finally, we can create a loss ratio measure and then be grouped and filtered on any selection from the table. We use the divide function again. We take the incurred measure created earlier, divide that by the premium measure, we bring that into the bottom visual, change the percentage to a single decimal place, bring that into the visual. Now we have a loss ratio that is correct. Now if we want to introduce, for instance, business unit parent, the loss ratio will now aggregate accordingly and work out the correct percentage for the splits of country and business unit parent. We'll now take a look at the DAX Query View. In here, you query the data model using a query, and the output needs to be of a table format. For instance, you use the evaluate function, and the evaluate evaluates a table. Hence, when you run this query, you get the full table, all the columns and all the data. If we wanted to evaluate a measure, we could try and type evaluate and then try and add the measure, but you'll see the IntelliSense stops working. So if we add in a measure claims OS, close it and then try and run it, when it's not going to work. And that's because the measure is a scalar value and not a table. However, we can turn this into a list table by wrapping curly brackets on the outside and turning it into a table constructor. Now, if we run it, you'll see that we end up with a query for the top and then a query or a second result, which starts to bring through the measure total. If we now add all the other measures, when we run this query, it'll create a list table. And there we have it. If we now go to a second query, we're constructing the query slightly differently, where we're defining a measure, and then we're using the evaluate and a select columns function, DAX function, which will select specific columns within a table, as we've done here. But by defining the measure at the top, which is the claims paid by the claims outstanding, as the incurred claims, we can refer to that in our query below. And so when we evaluate and run the query, that measure will be executed and calculated as a column in the query below. In the third query, we've just defined all the measures and we've replaced all of the columns with measures. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found that useful. Next video will be on the Starting Out series, will be on iterators, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, please subscribe or leave your thoughts, questions, and any suggestions in the comments below. Thanks very much.